Welcome in to kick off the tip-off with Noah and Gage. Here to cover some breaking news from the NFL. The offseason is beautiful, isn't it, Gage? We've got Deebo moving into Washington, D.C. with the Commanders. Really interesting here. I know there's been some trade talks between these two. I think they included Jonathan Allen at the beginning of trade talks, moved to just a fifth-round pick. Gage, what's your initial reaction on this trade?
The NFL was ready to hop into some March Madness. They weren't ready for college basketball to start stealing the shine, and obviously some NBA as we just finished up discussing. So immediately off the top of my mind, though, you and I kind of just discussed it, right? This wasn't, to me, this wasn't the ideal fit for him. I know you weren't really a big fan of it either. So, before we get into that, yeah, you did bring up the Jonathan Allen part. Ultimately, this is from Jeremy Fowler. Ultimately, he wasn't included. Jonathan Allen due $16.4 million this year. So, especially with that extension looming for Brock Purdy, I feel like that cap hit for him kind of had something to do with him not being included in the trade, going back to the 49ers.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see. I think people probably thought you would get a little bit more out of Deebo than a fifth round pick. I think he has to be in the right scheme to be effective. So I kind of think this was a pretty even swap in what you're getting between them. And like you said, with Jonathan Allen, with that much money, the 16.4 million that he's due, plus with that Purdy contract looming, depending on how much Purdy wants, we heard some numbers that are pretty heavy. So just really thinking about it, I do think this went as well or as even as a trade could go for both teams with the situation they're in.
I think back to this past year, the Devontae Adams trade, the Jets ended up giving a conditional third-round pick that could potentially turn into a fourth, I believe it was, if Adams didn't play a certain amount of snaps, but I believe he met the requirements. But so, yeah, that was kind of the baseline of things. Adams for a third, so Deebo goes for a fifth. So I think in terms of value, I don't think anybody was really getting, fleeced here. It ultimately depends on how Kingsbury and the Commanders are going to be able to use Deebo effectively. As you mentioned, he at times can look like a system-based receiver because of his yak numbers, right? His yards after catch, where he kind of makes his living. I think Shanahan was really good when Deebo was really going good. Was schemed up in a sense. Some motion plays, some drags where he was able to get the ball in space and maybe take off for 20, 30 yards on top of a 6-7 yard catch.
Exactly, and I think that's the one upside that we're seeing here. He's going to Kingsbury, an offense where Kingsbury's at the helm. So I think there is some ways they can get him involved that will make the Commanders look better at sometimes. I just hope he doesn't expect to go here and be the number one top guy. I mean, you have Terry there. You were brought here to be a two receiver, and you get five targets, 6 targets a game, and that's all you're probably going to get here in this offense, in my opinion, with Deebo. But also thinking about it with Eckler in the backfield, him and Eckler kind of remind me of each other. I think Deebo is probably a little bit more explosive than Eckler is, but just a guy you can bring out of the backfield that you still have the threat that he's going to run the football, because we've saw Deebo run the football over the past couple years. He is a guy that can take a handoff and additionally come out of the backfield and catch some passes and get a little bit of a mismatch between him and a linebacker.
Terry McLaurin coming off a career year, kind of a sneaky career year, because until really playoff times when they upset the Lions, people weren't really talking about him in general. Now, his numbers obviously due to the fact of Jaden Daniels being rookie of the year and just having a hell of a first season in the NFL. But so, yeah, you said it best. I think Deebo is likely a lock for anywhere from 5 to 8 targets a game in this offense. But I think in terms of Washington, right, this is good for Jaden Daniels. You're pairing him with Terry McLaurin and a more than serviceable wide receiver 2 in this league. And you are right. If his ego is going to push him to cause problems about being a wide receiver one in the league. It's just not the case anymore, Noah. Deebo coming off a year, 51 receptions, 670 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also dealt with some injuries here and there this past season in just a awful season for the 49ers. So maybe a fresh start for him is good, but it just in a previous video I had talked about I really would have liked to fit with him with the Broncos because he would have had a lot more of an alpha receiver role in terms of Sutton being your outside guy and he could really play the inside. But a lot of the times Terry McLaurin was receiving a lot of snap plays for the Commanders. So it'd be interesting to see how Kingsbury uses him in this offense. But at the end of the day, I do think that this is good for Jaden Daniels. It's another target. I'm glad to see a team go out and invest for their rookie quarterback going into their second year. The Bears, obviously, with Caleb Williams, right? You'd like to think you have receiver figured out with DJ Moore and hopefully a second-year resurrection from Rome Odunze, and then Keenan Allen is seeming to be gone. But it's just good to see a team spend some capital on a weapon for a young quarterback. I never hate that.
Agreed, and I think that's why my biggest objection for trading for Deebo is I was really hoping they made a pop at that wide receiver spot because of how lethal Jaden Daniels is a quarterback when we watched it. And we're used to seeing in year 2 these quarterbacks kind of take a little bit of a regression. I mean, look at
CJ Stroud.
I mean, just happened. So that not everybody, I guess not everybody has a sophomore slump, but you do see a little bit of regression in their play.
Well, there's more tape. There's more tape on the guys.
Exactly. So I know that there's going to be some number downfall with Jaden Daniels this coming year. There's going to be some passes that the previous year he hit, but this year the window's a little bit tighter because they know where he's going with the football.
To clarify, you're not saying a down year in terms of a negative saying. It's just when you have a season as good as he did, it's so hard to replicate that or do it again. Unless you're Mahomes in the years of like 2018 to 2020, and even then, that's arguably one of the best receivers in the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And you saw his production has dropped off like a cliff these past couple of years in terms of passing yards and touchdowns and stuff. So it's hard to produce those types of numbers every single year.
And that's exactly, I think that's where I'm at with the Deebo thing is because if he put up all these numbers with some not going to say nobodies, but some questionable wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 play, if you would have went and got him, not saying that it was possible, but like Devontae Adams or one of these guys, T. Higgins, something like that, like, oh my gosh, what do the Commanders look like? Outside of him, he might have a little bit of regression, but at the same time, your offense got 5 times better because you have a quality wide receiver 2 that he's able to throw the football to.
One more thing to touch on. Washington is taking on the remainder of Deebo Samuel's contract at $17.55 million. So not sure off the top of my head how many years are left on that deal. It may be 1. But so definitely a significant cap hit for this upcoming year. But, obviously Deebo Samuel,
rookie quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a rookie deal as well, yeah.
Rookie deal.
Obviously, Deebo not worth a first-round pick, so you're adding a proven receiver. You still get to keep your first-round pick to use, and maybe it goes offensive line or the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, your second and third-round picks, so they didn't overpay, anything in that nature. You look back at the Jets, right? I mean, you're giving up that third-round pick for half a year of production where your team ended up 5-12 or 6-11, whatever it was, and now both of those guys are out of the door.
Exactly. So I think it'll be interesting to see on the opposite side, the 49ers, what comes about there because now you have Kittle, you have Aiyuk who's hurt, Jennings who looks like he's definitely worthy of a wide receiver 2 position in the league. So it'll be interesting to see what that offense looks like and where they go in the draft now that Deebo's out the door. They just had they have Pearsall. Obviously, he kind of got in later in the year because of the gunshot wound. So just be really interested to see what happens on the 49er side of things because of what Deebo has played in their offense. Not that he's been so productive, but I think they've definitely designed things around his play.
So I just said this to you before we started this, right? There's without question in my mind that the 49ers will trade up at the 11th spot in this draft. They will trade up into the top 10 picks to select a player. And pre-episode, I'm telling you, man, it'd be awesome if they would trade up if Ted McMillan slipped past some of these top teams in the top 6 and they could draft Ted. Problem with that is, like you just said, they invested first round draft capital into Ricky Pearsall last year. And I know you can't predict the year that you're going to have, but I know for sure Shanahan is kicking himself and Lynch, the GM, kicking themselves in the ass, thinking, well, damn, it, maybe we could have had Ted if we traded him in the top 10, but they have some holes on the defensive side of the ball where I think they might be a team that trades up into the top 10 to take a Will Johnson or a Mason Graham from Michigan to fill a hole in that defensive side of the ball. But like you mentioned about receiver, right? Jawan Jennings this past year in an elevated role because of some injuries, 975 yards, 6 touchdowns on 77 catches. So he's more than capable of handling a better role. And then you're really looking at Aiyuk to come off this injury, man, and prove why you gave him this crazy deal, because they tried to get him out the building. Let's not forget that. They traded him to the Browns, and he used his card. He said, hell no, not going to Cleveland. So he got his bag, and now he's getting paid like a wide receiver one, Noah. So it's time to produce like a wide receiver one.
Yeah, and I think the thing that they have the luxury with in San Francisco, that very few teams in the NFL have, is they have a quality receiving tight end, right? George Kittle is phenomenal in the red zone. He's phenomenal blocking. He can get out, hit the quick out routes. He can get you, secure you the first down. He's an elite tight end. So that's a thing where it can take a little bit of pressure off what a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 is expected, like we've seen with Kelsey in Kansas City over all the years. A lot of the things can be, and a lot of problems in the receiving core can be solved with a quality receiving tight end, right? So I'll be interested to see what they do offensively, but like you said, there's things that you have to look at on the defensive side of the ball, because let's be honest here. I mean, you have McCaffrey, you have Aiyuk, you have Kittle, you have Jennings. Those are 4 players right there that a lot of teams in the NFL would love to have. Like they would love to have that at their skilled positions. So I don't know how much noise they make in the draft. Like you said, they could draft up, but a big thing for them is going to be hitting on their late round draft picks. Like this fifth round pick, I know it's a 5th round pick, and you're like, huh? If you could hit on a pick right here at that 5th round pick, that's huge.
Somebody just put up some serviceable numbers. I mean, it doesn't have to be flashy, but it has to fill a hole, like you mentioned. And that's the thing with picks like, I would say 4 through 7 in the NFL draft, right? You're drafting for guys to maybe plug holes for a position that you feel is weak, or you're just not, you don't have the money to spend there.
Depth.
You see typically, yeah, depth. You typically see this with like corners or offense or defensive line, some guys who are quote unquote fillers, but then they get a chance to play and turn into, starters or above average players in the NFL.
Offensive line always. I feel like that's where you see a lot of like the 5th, 6th, 4th round
which is
draft
a
picks.
which is a position of need for them. I think if they do stick and pick at pick 11, a name that comes to my mind for them that I've been mocking recently to them is Kelvin Banks Jr., tackle from Texas. But if they are to stay there and pick, I think it just depends on how the board falls for them. But yeah, man, I mean, Deebo out the door, and you're expecting a big step up from Ricky Pearsall. You're hoping McCaffrey can come back healthy and really take a load of your offense, kind of get back to the Super Bowl year in 2023 and 24. Take a load off Purdy, too. They got to get that extension done with him. And I guess we'll wrap things up with this, Noah. Do you think the loss of Deebo is going to – you think we'll see a change from Purdy, or not so much? Just anything with Purdy that you want to talk about?
I don't think you'll see much of a change from Purdy, because I don't think he's been much of, not saying he's not a Deebo fan, but I don't think that since Purdy's been there, I don't think Deebo has been a number 1 option for him. I mean, the guy that's been most consistent on that team since Purdy's arrived has been Jawan Jennings, in my opinion. Like, Jennings is always there. He always makes the guess, outside of Kittle, of course, but at the receiving position, I think Jennings has been the most consistent in production for that team over the past 2 years. So I don't know what it looks like Purdy. I don't know if he's upset with the trade or how he feels about it, but I just think there's so many. Like Pearsall kind of fits exactly what Deebo does. I'm not saying he does it any better or any worse than what Deebo does, but I think Pearsall jumps into that position exactly how they want it, and they got some cap space too because, like you said, the Commanders are taking over that contract.
Yeah, I'll be excited for this opportunity for Ricky Pearsall. I think he's a talented receiver. I think when they took him in the first round there in 2024, it raised some eyebrows just because Shanahan, man, it seems like they're always drafting flashy positions in the first round, wide receivers, corners, this and that. They tend to rarely draft offense or defensive line in the first round, but yeah, him that kind of trio of Pearsall, Jennings, and Aiyuk will be interesting to watch as far as NFC side of things goes, and definitely helps having a top tight end in George Kittle for sure.
All right, Gage, you got anything else to hit on, or you think you got everything covered in it?
I'm good, man.
All right, like always, like, comment, subscribe. Just letting you guys know we are going to get some more NFL content rolling here. Free agency kicks off March 12th because I do believe I did see this on this Deebo trade. Is this actually isn't finalized till March 12th because nothing can happen in the until the new season begins for the NFL, and that's March 12th. So be interested to see once free agency opens what we're seeing in trade and everything. So
I have a very good feeling you and I are going to be having a NFL episode soon about Aaron Rodgers suiting up for the New York Giants, Noah. I really
all
believe
right.
that. So that'll be episode for another day.
All right, heard it here first. Aaron Rodgers is a New York Giant. Like always, like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate everybody watching. Definitely comment whatever content you want to see from us. Anything we cover, we like it. We like talking sports, so just let us know.